Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are back. We just did the week zero review. Now this is the week one preview. I am joined, as always, by my co-host BuckMetrics. Let's talk about week one here. How's it going?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. I thought what would be useful since we don't have really a bunch of data from the prior week or a big data set for like weeks and weeks prior. I thought what would be kind of interesting and informative would be just to go over some of the key returning players and teams by my metrics. So by a few of my metrics here, I'm just going to go through these returning entities, if you will, and say where I see them going and get your thoughts on it. So first of these, remember Apex 100 is average for all of college football. Below 80 is problematic. Above 110 is pretty darn good. So these are the top 10 returning quarterbacks by Apex. Grayson McCall at Coastal Carolina. We mentioned I don't really believe in his coach. Caleb Williams, we talked about in the USC preview how the upperclassmen and O'Reilly just go to another direction. Jordan Travis, I think, moves up a bit because they get Keon Coleman, if I got his name right, the quarterback or the wide receiver from Michigan State, who was pretty much their best player. Dylan Gabriel goes down because they lose Marvin Mims at Oklahoma, who was by far their most explosive threat. Dylan Hopkins, I think, going to New Mexico is not going to really be great for anybody's career, unless you're a hatch pepper farmer. KJ Jefferson, he's going to miss Kendall Briles, who has gone to TCU. So those, some of my top 10, some that are poised to really take a step up. Casey Thompson from FAU. We've seen again and again these proven quarterbacks dropping down to G5. I think this is the most extreme case. I really expect him to take a step up. Tanner Mordecai, we talked about. Our buddy Josh didn't believe in him as much as you and I might. Austin Reed, Western Kentucky. The tougher defenses leave Conference USA. So I think his numbers will take a big step up. Jaden Delora, I just love that offense in Arizona. And Clay Millen was actually 22nd despite having no offensive line in his first year as a starter. So I think that the whole ascent of the Colorado State program really moves him up too. So any points of agreement, disagreement? Did I miss anybody? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty even on all this. Yeah, I agree. I think Jordan Travis is with Florida State is going to be kind of fascinating. They have a really good game this week against LSU, which is the repeat of last year's game, and that game was insane as well. But interestingly enough, Florida State is a dog though in that game, and I keep eyeing that. It was 3. It's gone down to 2.5. I keep eyeing that line, and my model loves Florida State. It was actually kind of doesn't believe that much in LSU, but I keep looking at that, and I keep thinking about that one as well. Though Casey Thompson at FAU, that one's going to be fun. I think that one. Tom Herman, Casey Thompson at FAU. I'm excited for that to see how that's going to look, as well as Austin Reed, Western Kentucky. I think that's going to be really good as well. And again, Tanner Mordecai, as we said before, we're pretty high on him at Wisconsin. So I think some very fascinating new fits to see, and we're gonna see some of that this week. So I'm pretty excited to see that.
Yep. Okay. Next is the top returning Ryan receivers. Refresher: Ryan is receiving yards above noob. So basically, we take a player's total yards and then we subtract from it just a kind of a base level of receiving yards per reception, and we see what kind of explosiveness each receiver here adds. So I don't know if there's anything too crazy on here. Marvin Harrison and Buka to go down. I think just with breaking in a new quarterback, their numbers are going to take a hit a little bit. I don't know about how much, but they just are not going to have the same as last season, just unless Kyle McCord is just unbelievable. But even remember, Stroud took a couple games to really get the hang of things his freshman season. Jamari Thrash is interesting. I think his numbers will take a step down just because he's moving up so much in class, going from Georgia State to Louisville. That might leave Rome Odunze at Washington as the best. Washington they didn't start slow last season, but they were definitely a lot better once they kind of got the hang of the DeBoer offense. Dorian Singer, I love him. He's number 5 returning, but I think he's going to go down. If you saw that USC game, they've got an unbelievable wide receiver room, and you can see that they're making a point to get the ball to everybody. So I think he will be amazing. I think his production probably takes a step back a little bit. We'll see. Corley at Western Kentucky, just along the same lines as Austin Reed. Ollie Jennings, our guy, goes to Virginia Tech. Not that I'm wild about the Virginia Tech offense, but the Old Dominion quarterback was not really good last season. Tyron Smith, this looked to be pretty prescient when I did this slide, and that game 0 or that week 0 game out of UTEP. I don't know what they have, but they didn't look really well organized. Torrey Horton at Colorado State. I think that program's just headed in the right direction. And Johnny Wilson at Florida State, I think, takes a step back because they bring in Keon Coleman, so he doesn't have to be the guy. I think he'll be more effective, but he'll just be on less gross attempts. 6 that are going to come in, Cowing. I think Cowing's just a function of Singer moving to SC. Moose Muhammad, I really like this. He was 37th in an offense that was absolute garbage last season. I believe in Petrino to a degree. I think he'll move that offense up a lot, and this guy's talented, so he'll make a difference. The other one, Brock Bowers, I just mentioned him because he's 17th, which is just nuts for a tight end.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see how much they use him this season.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing I will actually say is I am slowly changing my opinion on Ohio State this year. I was kind of down on them a little bit, but I'm slowly turning positive on them. So the thing is, again, and one of the things I've talked about is when some one of the cool things about the way the season is structured is that we see the NFL preseason before we start seeing college football, right? So we see the impact of some of these guys as they leave college to the NFL. And generally what happens is, and I've noticed this a couple of times, if a guy is good in college, it means that their team is about to take a massive loss. Like Kenneth Walker last year went to Seattle. Michigan State tanked after they lost him last year, right? And we've seen reverse, and Trevor Lawrence, obviously he left Clemson. Clemson's gone down. But Zach Wilson left BYU, and BYU was kind of stayed about the same, and Zach Wilson has not been good, right? So generally it's the inverse correlation of a lot of these guys. And CJ Stroud is currently the starting quarterback for Houston, but not he hasn't particularly done much in the preseason. He's been very, very rough. Finally got a touchdown in the last game, but I was watching a bit of it. I didn't see the entire drive, but I think the Saints muffed a punt, so he got a short field. And
Okay, there you go.
This is not this is far from oh man, that guy's quarterback won. There's been many games when Davis Mills, remember Davis Mills from Stanford all those years ago? He's come in relief, and they usually cycle them in. They'll usually have the starters play a couple series, but Davis Mills has had a far better control of Houston's backups than CJ Stroud playing with the ones in the front. And the problem is it's under pressure. The second there's any sort of pressure, the second there's multiple people rushing him, he takes a massive sack, throws it away, bad pass, and it's the same kind of complaints that we had about him last year. Now, and again, we said, okay, the second he plays against a team that can apply pressure to him like Michigan, they lose. And they lost both of those games, right? Well, now guess what? Now every team is basically comprised of a bunch of Michigan basically level defensive players, right? So now they're in a bit of trouble here. And the thing is, this is a bit complicated, right? Because CJ Stroud was the favorite to win the Heisman for a large part of last year. And now all of a sudden he's struggling in the NFL. I kind of think that there's a non-zero chance that whoever Ohio State's quarterback is could actually be good, and he may not have the same issues as C.J. Stroud. He may actually be able to win. And the thing was, I remember we talked about Ohio State. This is kind of more of a tangent specifically on Ohio State rather than wide receivers, Ryan for wide receivers. But I remember one of the knocks against Ohio State we had on them last year was they were bad against the run. They had problems with rushing. That's why Oregon beat them in 21. So the thing was, I actually looked back, and according to my rankings, Ohio State had one of the better defenses last year. It's just the problem was the fact that their offense really struggled whenever they played against a good defense. So then, okay, yeah, they had a great defense, but at the same time, they really struggled whenever they played against a really good. They always would struggle against really good teams because their offense couldn't get over the top. And I kind of think that maybe they might be able to put it together this year. If they're like, again, we're going to watch early games here to see what happens here. But like, I think Ohio State could actually be a very good team. They could go to the college football playoff and they could potentially win. They're plus 750. I kind of think they may have the pieces here to do something here, but we'll have to see.
Interesting. Yeah. Maybe just like to a degree, it sounds like the offense is plug and play, you think. And
I think so, right? Like the thing is, there's all these we have these negative things associated with Stroud, right? Like the problems under pressure, throws the ball away. Those, if you have someone who can clean up those negatives, and then you let the defense take over. I mean, he's got wide receivers, he's got a great offensive line, they've got a great rushing attack. If you can just clean up the problems under pressure, then I think you could actually have a really really good team, and I think you could you could definitely compete with Penn State and Michigan State, not Michigan State. You could definitely compete with Michigan. I think you could win the Big Ten, and then you're going to the college football playoff, and then anything can happen, right? So I think I'm kind of high on Ohio State. I think maybe they could actually have a really good year. I'm also eyeing their 30. The interesting thing is their spread this week is 30. They're going to be playing potentially both quarterbacks at different times. So
yeah.
both are going to want to make an impact. So I kind of think that minus 30 is a great bet. It's one, Indiana, and two, if both of them are trying to score as many points as possible, I think you could see both get out there and try to hang 20, 21, 28 on them. So
Yeah. Yeah, can't disagree. All right, well, let's see if Ohio State is among the best run offenses that we have. Reminder, GGAB is ground game above Boston College. It basically is saying how many more yards did this team get running the ball than if Boston College had ran the ball that many times. Boston College had the worst rushing offense last season at just under 2 yards per attempt, meaning that if they ran 5 times, it would be 6th in inches, as we concluded with our buddy Josh during the ACC preview. So here's the top returning ones. Air Force and Michigan, I just don't see any movement there. They return enough between the two of them. I think Mississippi goes down because they're bringing in a couple of good wide receivers. I think they'll be a little less reliant on the run. Now we'll see how Jackson Dart plays into that. UCLA loses Zach Charbonnet. I think that hurts. That guy was kind of a special running back.
And Dorian Thompson-Robinson was also pretty mobile too.
Yeah. Oh, good point. Forgot about that. Yeah. UAB, we made a lot of jokes at their expense. No point in doing it again. UCF, I think, is going to struggle a little bit just with the caliber of defense that they're facing is going to improve. Utah returns a lot on the offensive line. Plus, with the unknown health at quarterback, I think that you're going to see more running out of them. Arkansas loses Kendall Briles, so I think their running efficiency goes down. Oklahoma, because they lose Marvin Mims, I think they're gonna run a little more this season. Poised to enter. The one that we talked about, Ohio State. The one that really stands out to me is LSU. They were 30th, and Brian Kelly, once he got his kind of guys in at Notre Dame, they consistently had just offensive lines that you didn't want to screw with, and I think year 2 of him at a school like that is going to be something. LSU's metrics were a little below their achievement, which is a credit to Kelly. He does that all the time. But I think that their running metrics take a huge step forward next season.
Yeah, I agree with all those. I would actually say I'm not sure if Bama would be poised to enter the top 10. I think they're one of the better. They were kind of you have them at 22nd. I think those are just raw unadjusted yards, right?
That's last season's ranking. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is who I think they might come to the top 10. Yeah.
I kind of think we might see a regression with them. I think with losing Jahmyr Gibbs, I think it's possible we could see them either stay the same or regress. That's my only note from that, though. We'll see.
My dogs violently disagree with you. I don't know if you can hear them in the background.
Apparently, yes.
Yes, they really don't like that take. Here's the one thing. Yes, they are. I agree. Jahmyr Gibbs leaving and being like, I don't know. You told me, was he a top 10 pick?
12th.
Wow. Okay. That hurts, but I think that hand's going to be kind of forced because I don't believe in Milrow. I don't believe in Buckner. I don't believe in anybody in that quarterback room at the moment. And Buckner and Milrow both run too. Not that Bryce Young didn't, but if that's the only thing that your quarterback does, and his name's Jalen Milrow, he's going to run more. So we'll see about that. It's fun when we disagree on these.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Not that I'm believing in Alabama because I give a whole thing about could be the beginning of the end for them or just at the next stage. All right, defenses. So this is based on my defensive power ratings last season. Illinois, I think they inevitably take a step back. They lose a lot, but I believe in Bielema, so I think they probably stay in the top 10. Iowa falls, I just think, by a little bit, and that's only because I think Michigan and Penn State are so poised to improve. Cincinnati, that's really just a function of losing Luke Fickell. Marshall, in our Sun Belt preview, I went into that that's really just the defensive coordinator who's now at Miami, Lance Guidry. And their head coach is an offensive-minded guy. He's a former running backs coach. So I don't think he's one. I think he made a good hire with Guidry, but let's just see. Guidry doesn't strike me as somebody that's easily replaced. As the ones that are poised to enter, the one that really stands out, and I mentioned this in the SEC preview, Georgia was 13th last season. Their defense was good, not elite. Their improvement metric was 105. Second place was of Michigan, 85. Michigan's 85 usually leads. That 105 improvement metric for Georgia is the highest since I've been tracking it. So I kind of almost want to start it. Let's just put Georgia, assume they're going to be number one and work after that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I will say that one of the things with Iowa is that one of the reasons why they have such a good defense is, obviously their defense is good, but also they get to play against a Nebraska team that last year they're the Big Ten West. They get to play against Nebraska. They get to play against Purdue, which decides to not be good against them, only good against Ohio State for some reason. Then they also get to play against like Penn State, like Wisconsin team last year that struggled too. So they got a lot of easier games last year, and they've had a couple of really good games. They've got to play against Grand Rapids twice in the last 2 years. That's a self-defeating Florida joke there, but it's like the thing is, even then, like, defenses eventually regress. I think Iowa lost a couple of draft picks there. I think in the first 2 rounds to defense as well. I think they definitely lost a linebacker. I think they lost a couple other pieces as well. So, I think they lost they lost edge rusher to Green Bay in the 13th pick or something like that. So, but anyways, I agree. I think this is going to be a problem. I think eventually this defense will regress. And I think if your offense positively regresses, but like you're going to need a lot of positive regression to make this a competitive team, right? It's not like, oh, okay, we had like 5 points more per game. It's like, no. You need to add like 10 or so more points per game. And I know a couple of people online have begun believing that, and I think watch this week, they're probably going to destroy Utah State, and people are going to be like, that's it, they figured it out. They finally figured out how to score points, but don't believe it. We'll talk about that next week, I'm sure, but don't believe it. I think Iowa is still going to struggle offensively. But yeah, I think as a defense, they will probably regress.
We'll talk about that in a little bit, actually, not just next week.
Oh, okay.
But I'm sure that'll be a weekly feature until it's settled one way or another.
Yes.
All right. The other thing I thought would be interesting to go over is just for more context about where I'm coming from, just the future plays that I made. I went out to Vegas last week. Thank you very much to my guy Moneyline Max and Safi for taking care of me out there. So on the left, you see my season win totals. The plays in green are the ones I had the strongest conviction on. The ones in red, I bet the least on. Little worried about DJ Irons. See if he has the Matt quarterback injury curse that I've sprung on 2 guys so far. Other than that, what else stands out to me? Colorado State, I've mentioned a couple times, I think, is Ascendant. Arkansas State, I mentioned. They play UMass, which is now delightful to me. Um, New Mexico State, guys, come on. At least they play 13 games. I want to point that out around them. And Temple, I was a little surprised, didn't come out higher. I'm really high on them. On the conference champs, Western Kentucky, I think is just, they're so far away, just the best in the Conference USA. Great. Reminder that we actually, I think actually during the podcast with Brandon, not Brendan, of the Mountain or the Big 12, we actually talked ourselves into taking a little bit of Kansas at 40-1. I grabbed Florida State when I was doing the research for them. I didn't even wait for the podcast. As soon as I was as I was researching this, I just had to jump on them. Same thing for Nick Singleton for the Heisman, Penn State running back. I think Penn State's going to have a really good season. And then we have the $15 flyers, just the smaller ones that in the course of the podcast, I talked into some season win totals. Old Dominion and Texas State, whole new offenses, new quarterbacks and new offensive coordinators from, lesser schools. And Northern Illinois just having the identity in a conference where, very few squads have an identity. I think their offense should be a known quantity. So I put a little bit on them, just small plays.
Yeah.
Any points of disagreement on this or?
No, I will say I absolutely love Kansas Big 12 40-1. That number is insane. And remember, we called out, we were like, oh, that Texas number is crazy. There's no way they should be. And I will say the Texas number has moved. Texas is now only plus 100 to win the Big 12. So, because I remember, I think they were negative 120.
Yeah.
So it clearly some people fading Texas now. People are like, oh, so I guess technically that's reverse line movement, I guess, towards this closing line movement towards us, I guess. But I mean, Texas is still absurdly plus 100 is insane. That's one of the craziest numbers I've ever seen. Like they're one of the shortest conference favorites. Period. Western Kentucky of winning Conference USA is plus 125. They're the next. Oh, sorry, Georgia minus 110 to win the SEC. Which is actually, I feel a bit bad, but LSU's there. But the Texas is insane. I actually will say that Florida State on my book is still 20-1 to win outright, and I kind of like that actually. I kind of do.
Yeah, they opened at 30 too.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I kind of like them. I think if you had to pick, and this will age probably horribly. What are your four to go to the college football playoff? Make your 4 college football playoff picks.
I'll do Florida State. I'll do Georgia. I guess I'll go with Michigan. Just that when we did the Big Ten preview, that running stat about their we showed it earlier. That the only team that was ahead of them in GGAB was Air Force, and it was actually pretty close. That just is frightening. I'm glad USC is not in the Big Ten this season because that would just give me nightmares just having to face that running attack. So I'll go with Michigan, even as weird as Harbaugh is. And the fourth team, Florida State.
I think you said Florida State. So you're Florida State. Florida State, Georgia, Michigan, and
then Ohio State.
Ohio State. Okay.
I'm just the 2 teams in the. Yeah.
All right. Give me Georgia, LSU, Florida State, Ohio State.
LSU. Wow.
Yeah, I believe in Brian Kelly. I think he can get back there. I think he can get there. Again, the thing is, it'll be a fascinating SEC championship game. Then it'd be like, okay, best 2 of 3. But that's the thing. Florida State, they could win in a down conference. Ohio State. The thing is, I will say this, and that in all my years watching college football, there are very rarely years where there isn't some sort of controversy, and this is the last year of the 4-team playoff. So there's gonna be some sort of. You can't bet on controversy happening because, for obvious reasons, but there's gonna be some crazy thing involving the 5th and 6th ranked team, and people are gonna be like, that sucks for them. It'd be like, well, next year it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's there's gonna be some controversy.
in the NCAA tournament, it's like, okay, there's 68 teams. You get your 30 seconds to gripe, and then you're just banished.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is you go to
For
the NIT, right? For that, right? You're like, oh, okay, I just missed out
yeah,
on the. But
that
like,
is the banishment. Yeah,
mhm. But even then, it's like, okay, you were the 68th ranked team. Were you really gonna beat the number one team? But it's like you were the fifth ranked team. You could actually beat the number one team potentially, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. But there, I don't know. There'll be controversy. I guarantee you there'll be controversy. But yeah, I actually really do like that Florida State college football playoff CFP champs.
yeah.
I'm gonna bet that actually. I'll bet that.
They're by if you just take, I don't know, by my metrics, the ones that basically are strong enough on both sides of the ball, they have by far the best odds, and it's not even close.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fact that USC's what is USC like 10 or 12 or something like that?
14.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
no way they should be
Florida State's
below Florida State.
they're a more
Yeah,
complete team.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now I got just a very generic graphic because I'm lazy. So games that we wanted to talk about in week one. Just a couple of minutes on each of these. Speaking of Florida State, first game we're going to talk about. I think this is on. Is this on Sunday? LSU at Florida State
No,
or versus Florida
yes.
State?
Sunday
Yeah,
night, 7:30 start.
at Orlando. So it's ish neutral site. LSU giving 3. You said it's down to 2.5 now.
2.5.
Um,
Yeah.
to my point about how strong I had Florida State last season, at the end of last season, my model would have this game, Florida State giving 8.5. LSU
Same.
has in prior, oh, really?
Yeah, my model has I think Florida State 9.5. I think. Let me just double check that,
Interesting.
but it's more
Oh,
than a touchdown.
I, okay. I don't want to call this a dual model play, but
I
it's
was
a
about to
pretend dual
say.
model play.
I was just about to say that this is our first dual model play of the season. Um,
Yeah.
because it's technically not, but yeah, I've got. Oh,
No.
I actually have more than that. I have like 16.5. I have 16.3.
Wow.
I have Florida State by a lot. But to be fair, though, the last game was uh, LSU losing to Texas A&M, I think, or they had a bad loss, which is the last game I have in my thing. That's why. So that's why they're. It doesn't include their not blowout bowl win. So that's probably why they're a bit low on them.
Yeah, that makes sense. LSU has higher improvement metrics, and I think year 2 under Kelly, they take a step forward, but I just, Florida State returns just about everything, and then they add Keon Coleman. I have this Florida State given 2.5, so I'm going to play the money line when I've got the wrong team favored, and it's at least a 4-point difference. I've done some crazy analysis, and the returns on that, and usually that's with week 4 data plus available. It's a really nice ROI. So this is just I'd call it a pretend wrong team favored play, but I like it. So I like Florida State money line here.
Yeah, I agree. I'll be putting something on Florida State in this game for sure.
All right. Boise at Washington giving 14.5. What do you think about this one?
Uh, on one hand, it kind of feels like too many points, but it feels like too many points for me. I kind of like. I know people are really, really high on Washington, but Boise wasn't bad last year, and Washington also had a lot of very underwhelming games last year as well. So I don't know if I'm going to play this one, but if I'm taking something, I'm taking the points with Boise. I think here.
Really? Okay.
I think the USC game showed that the gap between the Mountain West and the Pac-12 isn't that. There's a gap there, obviously, but it's not like a huge gap, right? And I think that Boise State's definitely going to have a better defense. Like Washington's defense is worse than offense is worse than USC's, but Boise State's defense is also going to be better than San Jose State's, and their offense
Yeah,
might
definitely.
equal or maybe better than San Jose State's. So I think if I had to take a side here, I'd take Boise, and maybe I will actually take that. Depends on when that game is. When is that
You want
game?
me to you want me to book your bet on that one? I think it's Saturday.
No, when on Saturday though? Is it later in the afternoon?
It should be because it's at Washington. Hey, maybe it's on the Pac-12 network and nobody will watch it.
Yeah, the last games. It is. It is at 3:30. Oh, it's one of those weird games. 3:30 Eastern, so it's
Oh, that's
12:30.
12:30 local. That's
Yeah,
interesting. Is that on? That's got to be on. Is it on ABC?
it might be the Pac-12
Let's see.
network. Yeah.
No, they wouldn't do that. It's on ABC. Yeah.
Uh,
I like the other side here. I
oh, okay.
At the end of last season, my model actually had this Washington minus 1.5. Boise doesn't lose much, and they have the second year of Taylor Green. I'm going to talk myself out of this. No, because the new OC Bush Hamden, you know, I really need to see kind of shaking loose some memories here. Taylor Green without Dirk Cutter pushing all the buttons here. And this Hamden guy kind of stunk at Missouri. He was the quarterback coach, and their quarterback play was not good under him at all. Washington's weak point was defense last season. They were 64th in FBS by my defensive metric, but they have a high improvement metric. I think they took a step forward. Um, this is what is kind of interesting to me as well. Washington is at 9.5 wins for the season, and the under's getting crushed at minus 140. Boise is a 14.5 dog, 14.5 point dog to Washington. And their season total is 8.5, and the under is getting crushed. It's also minus 140. I bring this up because they're the favorite to win the Mountain West at plus 180, and I kind of went around this in the Mountain West preview. I can't imagine that this team is that much of a favorite to win the Mountain West. I mean, Washington's good, but if you're a 2 touchdown dog to them, to a team that's the market's saying is going to win 9 games, I don't know how you're plus 180 to win the Mountain West.
Yeah.
I actually have this line. I have it right on. I have it at 14.5. So I bring this up because it's a big game, and also just this is going to bug me. But there's some money to be had. I made a small bet on Colorado State to win the Mountain West. I think that my instinct that I kind of fiddled around with in the Mountain West preview of just taking 3 teams and just picking Boise as the dead bunny in the pool might be the way to go. I don't know. Let's see if there's another chance for me to kind of get in on that. It's kind of sticking in my brain about that one.
Mm-hmm. I think you're put your information on the game. That's enough to get me off that. I'm not touching it. I think
mission accomplished.
not like either way. I'm not touching it. I wasn't really strongly in favor of it either way, but yeah, this is stay away. Let's see what happens in this game.
Okay. Do you want to start with Florida at Utah and what the line is, because that seems to be changing by the hour?
It literally changes almost every hour. I think it's 6 now. I've seen this go from anywhere from it was 9.5, then it was 8.5, 7.5, 7. I saw a 4, then I saw a 6.5. Now it's a 6. I saw a 7 a couple days ago. This line has been literally everywhere. I got
right across these key numbers too. These aren't like dead numbers that's moving across.
Oh, and it literally, as I'm watching this, it literally just changed to a 5. It literally just my page refreshed and it's a 5 now. That's how much this line moves. I've got a couple of 7.5s. I got some 7.5 spreads, and I've got some like plus 270 money lines, so I'm pretty comfortable in this game. Yeah, this is a play because for the simple reason that I think Graham Mertz is better than a potentially non-existent Cam Rising and or a hurt Cam Rising. I mean,
that's confidence, folks.
I mean, yeah. If the other guy's starter isn't playing, then I guess he's better than that. Like the thing is, and I've talked about this before, and I get like Bo Nix did have a big resurgence with Oregon, and even then it took a couple of games though before we really started seeing huge payoff with Bo Nix. There's a possibility it could happen with Graham Mertz at Florida. I'm not extremely confident it could happen, but if it was to happen with one of these quarterbacks, I think that would probably be one of them who's like highly recruited, underperforming, goes to a new school. It's possible. I don't know how much I like it, but I also will say that when you look through Phil Steele, it does say that Billy Napier is actually very good as a dog. He's actually like, and they actually
Hmm.
they covered against Georgia last year. They covered against Tennessee last year. It was when they were favorites. That's when they ran into problems last year. Like when they were favored against
Yeah.
Kentucky, and then they just completely sucked in that game. So I have some stuff on this game, and I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. And I'm not putting anything. I'm gonna leave this game alone, and I'm just gonna sit back and enjoy this game when I watch it on Thursday night. So
Yeah, I just this is one of those that I just refer to as a price discovery game. I think there's so many. If this was a bell curve, it would be flat with a super wide distribution rather than just a narrow one where kind of everybody knows what the numbers will be. Um, I just can't make a line on a game where we think Utah is at their third quarterback. We think, and
maybe,
Graham Mertz his first start for Florida. I wouldn't even I couldn't even deign to try to make a line. Um, and just a reminder too, how when I'm coming up with my lines, I'm basically just saying what's the number I would want on both sides, and I average them and shade them away from my bias to kind of get to what I think the market should be. And I couldn't, God bless you for your bravery and betting this one. I couldn't. Um, but
yeah.
good luck to you.
For me, I think that line is the 7.5. To be fair, I think the 7.5 is that line with this game for me, and I think
Yeah,
I got that, so I'm happy with that. And I got what I
yeah,
felt like was a mispriced money line, so I'm okay with that.
yeah. No, I think you did. That's well done on that. It's just and like I said, just across these key numbers, it's not like it's jumping from 5.5 to 4.
No,
It's interesting. Okay. Clemson at Duke. Duke is okay. Duke is getting 13. They're not giving 13. I know that for sure. Um, this one's interesting to me. I'm just gonna go through a little checklist here, and this is not like I have the same checklist for every game, but until I have week 4 data and I can just run it through the model, it's I just kind of see what strikes me. Which quarterback had a better apex in 2022 between these two teams? Duke.
Duke,
Who has the most experienced quarterback between these two teams?
Duke,
Duke. Who had the more explosive passing offense between these two teams? Duke. Who had the higher rated offense by BuckMetrics of these two teams? Duke. Who retains more of their Ryan from the prior season? Duke. Um, is a lot there. Now Clemson does have a higher improvement metric on the offensive line, and they have a new OC who should move them up quite a bit. The prior guy was an internal promotion, which we both panned right away. Clemson clearly has a better defense. However, um, they both have. This is a little interesting, very inside, the metrics, but see if this makes sense. They both have a significant improvement metric, Clemson and Duke. But when I do a look back, the big improvement metrics favor much, much more a team that had a negative defensive rating, which Duke did. They were a negative 2.4. So I think Duke, in a vacuum, you would look for Duke to take another step forward. And I say another step because we saw the proof of concept with Elko, the former defensive coordinator. He improved their defense from a negative 11 to a negative 2.4. I think another step forward. It's kind of nuts to say. I'm seeing some parallels between Duke and South Alabama 1 year earlier. Um, I actually have this Clemson -6. Um, if you wanted me to bet on Clemson, I would not want to give too many points. I'll put it that way. Maybe I'm just biased towards Duke, but man, I just look at a lot here, and I can't get past. This is Mike Elko, man. This isn't like just some ordinary guy that they're going against. So I'm going to take Duke in the 13.
I've got Clemson -3, 3.5 or 3.7.
Wow.
So this is another combined model play, I guess, an unofficial combined model play.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with everything you said. Clemson is one of those teams people always bet on. I think last year the week 1 game was against Georgia Tech. I think they also
Yeah.
didn't cover that game, or they either covered it by like, I think it was like, if I remember correctly, I remember betting on Georgia Tech against them. I think, and I think they barely covered. I think they either covered or they barely covered. I can't remember, but it was either way. Like the only reason I even bring that up is because it was that Monday game again, because there's a weird Monday game they
Yeah.
do with the first week of college football because there's no NFL on yet. So no, I'm all for Duke on this. You're getting 11 flat now. It's not 12 and a half. It's 11. Or yeah, it's sorry 13 now. Sorry 13 now. It was 12 and a half a bit. It's back up to 13 plus 350 on the money line. Don't uh don't look away at
Mm.
that. They could win this game.
Yeah. Let me ask you this then, since this is where I don't know, even though I talk like a big badass gambler. Do you think that this could go up to 14, or do you think this kind of?
See that's the other thing, right? Because I haven't touched this yet because I keep feeling like this is going to get to 14 or 13 and a half. Like I keep feeling like if you put something on this, put a small amount on it now and then wait and come back cuz like
Mm,
one you're already over 10. There's not a huge difference between a 10 and a 13 to be honest. And I keep feeling like there's just going to be after Sunday there's going to be a ton of people chasing the losses like Clemson will destroy Duke, right? And I feel like that's what's going to happen. So like put something small on it, and then maybe we get a nice big buyback in spot on Monday. So we'll
okay,
see.
makes sense. All right, the next one I don't really have a great opinion on. Utah State at Iowa. I just wanted to bring this up because Iowa is giving 25, and the 25 has to be a troll job by the market, just because it's the Brian Ferentz number per game, right?
Yeah, it is. It's down to 24 now actually, but yeah,
Oh,
it keeps moving around. This one's moved a bit too. Definitely not as much as the Florida Utah game, but I've seen this at I saw this at 26 now. It's down to 24. Um, I kind of feel like you could probably get something, but the thing is, like, because it's so high, you like -30 is like plus 195. Like, you're not getting a lot of value on these alt spreads unless you go
mm,
insane, right? So
yeah.
I don't know. Remember we
Which is
talked
weird to
about like
say about an Iowa game too, because
yeah.
usually like points are like gold, but
Yes, but the thing is, we talked about this that maybe, especially in some of these games, the basically to save the to basically save the offensive coordinator's job, they're going to keep the starters out pretty deep into this game, just to kind of pack on the points. And
yeah.
I kind of agree with that. I think they probably will. I wish you could get something like, but you can't even like this -24 is probably okay. I think you probably put that. But the problem is, I feel like because this line is so big, they've already baked that into it. I feel like they're already like, yeah, okay, it should only be like 14 or something, but we're just tacking on extra points. Because what do I have for this from last year? Okay, there are a lot of Iowas in D2. Okay, I've got like I got 14 from last year. That's without Cade McNamara. Yeah, I just control F'd Iowa. It turns out there's a lot of Iowas in D2. It took a while to get to this line in the Excel doc, but no, I like that's. I feel like that number's already inflated, but it's not inflated enough to make me want to take Utah. I feel like they're just going to want to get out there and just absolutely crush this team.
It totals 44. That's interesting too. I don't know if I trust Utah State to score at Iowa.
That's true.
You know. Okay. Next one, Colorado at TCU. TCU's giving 21. Colorado again. To me, this is another price discovery game. There's so much new with Colorado. I wouldn't even be able to try to pretend to make a line on any game, and including them until I have 4 weeks of data, and then it's not me, then it's the model. You know, this is definitely one of those games to watch because it's Coach Prime's debut. If I was going to play anything, I'd go TCU. I think that there's probably a decent amount of dumb money that might be keeping this line down a little bit. And I think, when we did the Big 12 preview, I think we all agreed that Chandler Morris, the quarterback, and Kendall Briles, the new OC, they're competent. I don't think the team is there to win the conference, but I could see them just wanting to make a statement. And I usually hate these kind of psychological angles, but I don't know if people appreciate probably how much they want to just put 50 on the board just to say, yeah, Max Duggan is gone and Garrett Riley is gone, but yeah, we're still good. I think there's probably a very strong incentive for that to happen.
Yeah. TCU over 42 minus 105. I we don't know about Colorado, and I kind of feel like it would if Colorado were to win this game, it would be one of the most insane narrative games of all time. But it'd be really funny. This game will be a conference game next year. But yeah, I kind of think I think Colorado could be. They could be in trouble, but again, we have no way to know, right? Like I did bet this spread earlier. I think I got this at like 24.5.
Yeah.
It's down to 20.5 now. So I got some I've got some closing line value on this one, but it's just
You know
like
what might
yeah,
be the
it's go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. It might be the play, and I don't see it here yet. First half might be the play on TCU.
Possibly, yeah, they'd come out swinging, put up a couple points.
I don't have a
I,
number on that yet, but
yeah, I mean, I
I
think Colorado is the book's biggest liability to win the national championship. That's just insane. I mean, the books are saying that, but they must be like, haha, they're sleeping soundly, knowing that their biggest liability is on Colorado. They're like, that's great, that's good, guys, keep it up.
yeah, please
Um,
more of that.
More of that. We'll take that all day. But yeah, it's. I think that's. Yeah, this Colorado team could be good, but they're not like winning national championship game or winning Big 12 level good.
Yeah. All right, Nebraska at Minnesota. I kind of want to just this isn't really that tough for me, and maybe I'm just way off the market here. I see Jeff Sims, and maybe they get more out of him at Nebraska than Georgia Tech did. That might not be an impossible task. I actually say it out loud. It seems very possible. I just don't know how much of it happens right away. We've talked a few times about USC's horrible defense. Well, guess what? Nebraska's defense was ranked lower last season, and they actually have a lower improvement metric too. So I believe in Matt Rule, but I can't see him getting it turned around significantly in day one, where basically that's not an issue. Ethan Kaliakmanis, the Greek rifle, he had a 115 apex last season, and those are against teams that had an average defensive apex of 73. I think this kid's special. They actually have better receiving this year than last year, in that they retained over 100% of their Ryan from last season, if that makes any sense, because they lost little and they brought in a lot. The defense loses some, but it's consistent under Joe Rossi. I actually have this Minnesota minus 16.5, so I'm definitely going on the Gophers.
I
So
have
let's
Minnesota
start with what,
minus 15.
my goodness.
Yeah, that's from last season though. The thing
Yeah.
is, again, it's. I feel like when I saw this line, my first instinct was this is a trap. This is such a clear trap. This is Nebraska's improving. Take them to keep it within a score plus 7.5. It is such a clear trap against a good Minnesota team. Now here's the thing though, we are gonna fade Nebraska this week, but Minnesota is probably one of the better teams in the Big Ten, especially in the Big Ten West. So yes, Nebraska might lose this one. I think probably by a bit. But that doesn't. This is the thing, right? This is going to be the one that people are going to be like, "Oh, Nebraska, same bad Nebraska." But there will be spots to play Nebraska this season. It's just not this
Yeah.
week. And I'm not sure who
No.
play next week. I'm not sure who it is. I think they play Oklahoma again at some point. I'm not sure, but there will be time to play Nebraska. Just I think this Minnesota team is actually like pretty good.
They play Colorado week 2?
Oh, okay. Maybe that's the spot.
I'm asking. Yeah, I don't have that. Now I'm looking on my phone since all my screens are taken.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah. I think it's at Colorado, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you
there's
go.
a
There's
real
your
line on that. Nebraska minus 9.5. Yeah, I can't really make a line on Colorado, but I don't know. That seems like a Nebraska play. Let's make a
Colorado.
note of that. 9.5 now. Let's see where it moves to after week 1.
Colorado beats TCU. You get like
Yeah.
Nebraska plus 3.5. You're like, yes.
Yeah. Not holding my breath on that one.
Maybe. We'll see.
All right. So we have our third semi-pretend dual model play. All right. NC State at Connecticut. In part 1, I talked about we got to watch out for Connecticut. They had a proof of concept last season. NC State, we also mentioned this, with Anai at offensive coordinator and Armstrong at quarterback, they should get off to a quick start. So I wanted to talk about this because 14 and a half is showing a lot of respect to Connecticut. And maybe because it's at Connecticut, although I usually I don't even know the name of their field. So it's not like I can say, hey, you don't come out of there with a victory without earning it. Connecticut has a new quarterback. I think he's from FCS as well. So I can't make a line here, but this is just interesting. This line looks at first and second blush short. Curious what you think about this one.
It does seem short, but I think that's kind of why I want to take UConn. Brendan
Mm-hmm.
Armstrong did really struggle last year, and I think there's a non-zero chance that he doesn't improve that much or improves later in the season. And UConn did surprise last year. I think they first week they covered against Utah State. They didn't win that
Utah
game, but
State, yeah.
came close against them.
And they lost their two top receivers in that game, too, for this season.
Yeah, they could they? Do you think they could pull an upset off here?
Yeah,
We've
not
already
against.
seen some upset.
Yeah, I that wouldn't be the worst money line play in the world. I'll put it that. What would that be? Just I don't
500
get money
plus
lines.
500.
Yeah, I'd probably want a little more than that.
True, but I think it's not a bad play.
Yeah, no, I like how you're thinking on that. I can't bet it, but I don't know if I do the Alex Grinch thing and I do a bunch of shots of vodka and I have my phone on me late Friday night. Who knows what will pop up on the phone on Saturday morning in terms of bets
That's
that I've
Thursday
made.
actually. That's Thursday night actually. That's
Then
fine.
I'm safe. Okay, I'm
Yeah,
safe.
there you go.
Thank you for that. Um, all right, since Central Michigan at Michigan State, this is kind of the same thing. Central Michigan, we weren't really high on them in the MAC preview. They're starting over at quarterback. They had a mediocre defense, which looks like it's going to be the strength of the program. Um, you know, I almost want to just have like a soundboard for this, but Mel Tucker has not improved the Michigan State defense at all. Um, this line doesn't tell me to bet either way, but it tells me that Michigan State is in serious trouble this season. I I think that if I kind of generic it out about the problems that we see with Michigan State, this should be closer to 3 touchdowns, not 2. What do you think?
Yeah, this reminds me a lot of last year's week 1 game with Central Michigan versus Oklahoma State, in which Central Michigan did cover that spread, and then that kind of augured poorly for
Yeah,
Oklahoma State. I feel like this is kind of the same, and I think Central Michigan, if I remember correctly, they had a chance to win that game. They pretty easily covered that spread though, but there was a ton of points scored in that game. I don't know. I'm not touching Michigan State here. If there's any play, it's Central Michigan. I just don't know if I want to pull the trigger on that one though.
yeah. Just that's one of those kind of like lines to keep in mind later. Just like if Michigan State looks to be spilling oil, just another sign to say sell on Michigan State.
Yeah.
Fresno State at Purdue. This is another line that I'm not really gonna bet, but this is interesting. Fresno State is starting over at wide receiver. They lost basically anybody that was good that caught a ball last season. They're breaking in a new quarterback, but it's Mikey Keene, who was at UCF, who was good. I guess technically this is a little step down going from the mountain to the Mountain West from the American. If it's at 4, does this mean this is basically a pick on a neutral field?
I guess, yeah, it's down to 3.5 on my book. I don't want to touch this at all. I want to see what happens in this game, but this is a complete state. Like, I have no idea. Both these teams are starting over at quarterback. Aiden O'Connell is a Raider and Jake Hayner is a Saint. So both these teams are quarterbacks are in the NFL, both backup quarterbacks too. Hayner in the last drive against the Texans just decided to keep throwing it to the Houston Texans. Basically, every play was either a 30-yard gain or an almost interception or an almost interception. So that's not what you want to see. Um, but yeah, it's I'm not touching this. You could not pay me money to pick a side in this game. I don't even know. No, you can't even because like on one hand you're
Yeah.
like maybe Purdue, but then you're like, but then but like you don't trust Purdue, but then you trust like Fresno State having to redraw everything. It's just like man, it's a rough play out there. I have no idea who I even want to bet on this.
Yeah, you know what? Here's something to think about, and I don't want to just something to think about. I wonder in these price discovery games if it's just worth it. It sounds like you're saying this is a price discovery game too, where just there's
Yeah,
so many factors we don't know, and the distribution will be wild. I'm wondering if what would be the thought of just like taking the dog money line in these kind of games. I wonder what the ROI would be in that. That'd be kind of
eventually
interesting to.
we could test that. We could
And
lock some of those
I'm
games in and.
just stealing your mushy middle
Mhm.
concept and applying it to a different kind of venue.
It is different though, to be fair, because you've got a lot of these are like mushy middle, but they're interconference mushy middle. So it's like, well, what's the middle part of this conference versus the middle part of this other conference? I think
Yeah.
it's more well defined when you're like, okay, this is the same conference. We know they're all on relatively the same playing field versus like, oh, here's a team from. That's the issue with it comes with it, and that's why you have those differences. But like, this should probably not be Purdue -4, like or 3.5, but it is. But I don't want to take Fresno either. It's that's just a mess. I don't know that one at all.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. You know what's not a mess? I'm very curious about this too. Northern Illinois at BC, and you were interested when I ran the list by you.
Yeah,
Northern Illinois ended last season with a higher BuckMetrics power rating by more than a field goal. Emmett Moorhead, I've heard like a few different podcasts saying that BC loves their quarterback Emmett Moorhead. Now he played some tough defenses, but his apex was a 67 in his 4 starts. In fairness, it was probably dragged down by the Notre Dame game. At the same time, Northern Illinois' power rating was really depressed because they only had Rocky Lombardi for, I think, 3 or 4 starts last season. He actually was the highest rated quarterback in the MAC last season. I have this line BC -2, and that's just kind of being that's shading way away from my bias. So I am fascinated to know what you have this game.
I am too actually. I have Northern Illinois -14.
All right. Well,
That's
I don't. Do we? I don't. Do I count
like
that
I
as
can
confirmation?
I cannot believe Boston College is laying 9.5 points against like an FBS team. That seems insane. Now it's also down to 9, but still though, I'll still take that. 9 is pretty nuts here. Um, I'm taking this one 100%.
So
Like
we
I
count that
think
as a
Northern
pretend. Go ahead.
pretend dual model play. I cannot imagine like you saying, oh, they really like their quarterback. Well, guess what? They said that last year too. Boston College said, oh, we got Phil Jerkovich now, we're good, but that didn't work. Right now we're like, oh, well, we like this guy. Okay, well, I'm not really holding out much hope here for this Boston College team. Somehow their quarterback failed upwards and is now the quarterback for Pitt. I don't know how that happened. Um, but like the fact that they saw something in him and the fact that Boston College can get anything out of him makes me think that this program is in decline. It makes me think that they're completely ripe for a MAC team with their good quarterback who's off of injury
Yeah,
to knock them off.
that's really well said. I didn't think about that narrative, but it completely makes sense. All right, South Florida, Western Kentucky. I This just strikes me as a bit short. I wonder if this is the Alex Golish new coach of South Florida factor. Because Western Kentucky, I think, is a definite known quantity. You know, look at their price in Conference USA, plus 120 to win Conference USA. It's not like we don't know what this team is. Everybody knows what this team is. Granted, they play in a weak conference, but they are by far the best team in that weak conference. That was my opinion. That's the market's opinion. Yeah, the American is a step up. I can't make a line on this just with the new coach. But this is interesting. Remember how Josh was bullish on South Florida, and I kind of I'd put this on the other as the kind of the counter to if Michigan State starts spilling oil, that short line is something to consider. I kind of am putting this in the other way to say, if South Florida is showing some signs of life, I'm showing this as another point of affirmation on that. You know, at the end of last season, this line would have been 19 and a half by my model.
Easily.
And I'm not going to bet it because there's too many new factors, but this is interesting. Just, this is almost like kind of the note for later file, like we had in part one. What do you think?
Yeah, I have 17, so that's
Yeah.
similar. Yeah, like this should have been at least 3 scores. It's only 2. I'm not touching this. This is going to be an interesting one to keep track of and see if there is some life here with the South Florida. But yeah, this is that line seems short, but it's short enough that I'm not touching it out. I'm definitely not touching that out of week 1.
Okay. We'll speak in almost like scared tones about that one. All right, a few more here. Washington State at Colorado State. I'm not going to recite my whole case in favor of Colorado State. They're just an ascending program. They have by far the better quarterback. I also think that, or what I want to see, again, going back to Josh, he was nice enough to point out to us that Cam Ward, he's not a quarterback, and he grew up as a quarterback in that Incarnate Word / Washington State last year offense. Their offensive coordinator, I forget his name. I think he moved to North Texas, and I forgot his name. So now he's in a new offense that's not really designed for him, that he's not familiar with, and he had a 78 apex last season. He looked hurried last season. I actually have this as a pick. I am curious if, when we did the Colorado State game, you thought that Washington State would be heavily favored, and it sounded like you were about with this number. So I'm curious what you have this as.
Yeah, let me call this up. I have Washington State minus 13.5.
Wow.
But again, that's from last season.
Yeah.
But yeah, 11. I don't know. I know. You're a big. You like fading Cam Ward, and to be fair, that has been profitable. And I think that's a very fair thing. I'm going to stay away from this one though. But I think there is probably some foul. I feel like Colorado State could probably win this game.
Okay. Toledo at Illinois. I'd look at this, more than numbers, just kind of conceptually around the numbers. Illinois' defense, I think, is just going to dwarf Toledo's offensive line and their quarterback. I just don't believe. It drives me nuts that DeQuan Finn is getting all this buzz about one of the best quarterbacks in the MAC. He's mobile, but he stinks. He's not accurate. I think that he's going to have a tough time against Bielema's defense. I respect Toledo's defense in a MAC concept or context. I don't know if it really scares Illinois. Illinois plays in the Big Ten West. This would be probably one of the worst defenses that they would face within their division. 9.5 looks pretty short to me. I actually have this at 16.5. I'm playing this. My only question for you is this a pretend dual model play?
I only have this as Illinois minus 9.8. So I actually have this basically on the number. That was from last season. I do kind of like, I will say that I probably do like Illinois here though. But that's just my take on that. I think Illinois is probably a half decent play here. I think they could. Like, the thing is, there's probably a non-zero chance Illinois just like snowballs this game, and then it's over, right?
And, yeah.
What do we got for like alt spreads here? We have like Illinois.
That's a good idea.
Minus 20.5 plus 350. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Got hit an alt spread here sooner or later.
Yeah. I just kind of wonder too. Now you bring up the snowballing. I would love to have Illinois giving 9.5 and then be up by 2 scores and seeing that quarterback DeQuan Finn, not to crap on the kid, but if he has to pass and they know he has to pass to come back, he's not going to be at his best, and his best isn't really that great. Talk myself into making that more of a play here.
The other thing is with Illinois, I think losing Tommy DeVito is not a negative per se. I kind of
No,
we were not particularly high on Tommy DeVito, and he's a quarterback. He's now a backup quarterback for the Giants, and he was not
that's
amazing during the
unbelievable.
preseason. He was just kind of like decidedly iffy, and it's just like, yeah, okay. Now he's better than some of the quarterbacks he played against, though. I will say that, but that's not saying much because in fact he
Yeah,
played against some of the worst quarterbacks.
he's in Iowa's division.
Yes. Well, no, even this in the preseason games, he played
Oh,
against horrible quarterbacks, like just horrendous ones, like Tim Boyle. Like I don't even know how they find how some people are still in the league, but yeah, no, I think that if you take away that and you actually give Illinois a half decent quarterback, I think they could probably. Because again, the thing is, when I say snowball, it's going to be like, okay, Illinois scores, okay, then you stop them, then okay, Illinois scores again, then you guys start passing, then you get intercepted, you get a pick six, right? It's just going to snowball, and it's just going to be like that's exactly what Illinois played last year. It was we score slowly and that's fine, but then the other team starts panicking and then we get an interception, they make mistakes, and then we punish them for those mistakes. I think that's exactly what we could see. We could see that this weekend.
yeah. All right, last one. And this is just really quick. I don't have a big opinion on this game. I just thought it was interesting. I've heard a few people, you know, say Texas Tech is the dark horse to win the Big 12. I'm just thinking if you're a Big 12 team and you're the dark horse for that conference while Texas and Oklahoma are still in it, you should be given more than 14 points to a Wyoming team that just cannot throw the football. Am I reading too much? Again, I don't want to bet this game. This kind of tells me that the whole Texas Tech dark horse is a little overblown, or they are truly a dark horse, and I'm just the last one.
I actually now from last year I only have now my model was really weird on Texas Tech. It was both really high on them at times and really low at them at times. I only have like Texas Tech favored by 3 here, which seems really low. But my model does generally seem to like the Mountain West. Um, but I will say that like I kind of feel like this is like on one hand 14 seems really short, but on the same time I could see like Texas Tech played up to their level of competition and they played down. So like they kept a lot of games that were should have been blowouts if they played at that
Yeah,
level to like so that's the thing. That would be my concern and I feel like that's the concern here.
yeah. And I think they won 8 games last season, but how do you win 8 games if you beat Texas and Oklahoma? Kind of seems like you left something
Exactly,
on the
yeah.
table there, right? To your point. All right. So to recap, I'm just going to highlight what I've got here. I'm taking Florida State. That
Yeah.
is a pretend dual model play, as is
Mhm.
Duke, as is Minnesota, as are the Huskies. And then I also am taking, I'll put this in a different color, Colorado State, Illinois. There's a lot of plays for week one. And I'm going to take TCU first half. If I can get, that number should be probably around 14 to 17, right? They just chop it and round it up, it seems like, on the first half bets.
Generally what that's you could do that. That's generally what they do and you get value on that too.
Yeah. So I think
Uh
that's the play there. Um, who else do you have that I didn't?
I have what I'm trying to find that here. Oh, TCU only minus 11 and a half.
Oh, I like that. My,
I actually kind
I
of do
don't,
like that.
I don't have that yet, but I think that's the way to go.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with most of those. I am on Florida. I don't want to touch Boise, Washington State. I don't want to touch Iowa. I'm actually already on Colorado. I bet that a while ago, so I have some closing line value there. I don't know if I want to touch Yukon. I also don't know if I want to touch Central Michigan. I might just leave that one. But that one's later. We'll see. Fresno State, Purdue. I refuse to touch that at all. I'll go on Northern Illinois as well, and Illinois, and all the Illinois apparently, and then probably not Colorado State. I don't think there's anything else I'm gonna play. I'll probably play some other random stuff, but I'm probably gonna play. I'm gonna play Ohio minus 30. I kind of like that one.
Wow.
and maybe UMass plus 35. I think it's kind of hard to not. If you're a half decent team, it's not. Oh, okay. Oh, this is interesting. Wisconsin's up to minus 28 against Buffalo. That's the movement. I think it was 25 an hour ago. Some
You
lines
said
may be
Ohio.
moving.
You meant Ohio State, right?
No, yeah,
Okay.
Ohio State minus 30 against Michigan. I don't hate UMass plus 35 against Auburn. Wisconsin is minus 28 against Buffalo. That one's a little tempting, but I kind of just want to see what they can do before I invest anything in there. And then I also don't hate um, Texas minus 30 at Rice. I don't hate that one. I kind of feel like this is going to be a go out there because they also crushed Rice last year, like 50-10. I feel like this is going to be like a get out there, beat them up, and then we give Archie Manning some time in the fourth quarter. And I feel like to do that, you need to score like 1 billion points. So, I like Texas. Watch this. It's going to be Texas minus 35, and then we're gonna. You can't actually parlay this, but I would love to parlay Texas minus 35, and then whatever Bama spread against Texas is next week because they will destroy them. I do not know what, and I'm low on Bama this year, but they will. I'm whatever that spread is. Texas versus Bama. I'm going to be betting Bama spread. It's going to be minus like 6 or something. I'm going to be betting that for sure, 100%.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, can't disagree with that. Okay.
I don't completely hate the Bama spread this week. It's what 35. My model actually has some value on that one, but I'm not. It's Alabama versus Middle Tennessee State. What is that line? Yeah, 39. Yeah, that's a bit too high for me now. I'll leave that alone now. I think that was 35 a couple days ago. But other than that, I like some of those plays.
Okay. Cool. Is that it for week 1?
I think that is it for week 1, and
Okay.
we will. Oh, unless we want to do UCLA. Oh, that's the 10:30 game. UCLA versus Coastal Carolina minus 14.5. I feel like the UCLA is the play there. I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, Garber's is named the starting quarterback, so he got some playing time last season. And Tim Beck. I've said a lot about Tim Beck. I think I'm not going to play it, but yeah, I think if you're going to play that game, that's the side to play.
That's not bad. That's a nightcap game. Sitting here late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, watching UCLA annihilate Coastal Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's the play. All right. That is it for week 1. We will be back next week to recap if we were right or wrong. Hopefully right this time. What happened in week 1, and then we'll be previewing week 2. We'll start having some more data from some of these teams this year. See you guys.
Bye-bye.